The straight bar cable tricep extension is one of those exercises that I see down in the gym all the time, and with good reason, because it's a great arm exercise, but you can get a lot more out of if you pay attention to a few things. So we'll go over the setup, but also some nuances to it that I think a lot of people are missing out on. Now, setting this up, we want to start where we're going to finish. So we're going to end up with a little bend in the knee. We're going to be fairly close to the cable station, and we're going to push down to the bottom. So I want to start with my arms as long as possible. So that means that I should be able to lock out my elbow, or at least get close to it if you have some sort of restriction. I should be able to keep my shoulders down away from my ears, and my weight is over the handles. And so from there, I bend the elbow, keeping the bar close, and then I push back to that start position. So the first thing I see go wrong is not everybody fully locks out the elbow. So we end up in this sort of like mid-range. And so when we're doing tricep work, we have to remember that the tricep, like its main purpose is to extend at the elbow. So if we can't get to this full elbow lockout, then we miss out on the full contraction of the tricep. And so we have to make our way back to that point. So that's why we want to start there, because we need to figure out what that looks like, and in terms of the hand position, where that takes us. So oftentimes, if we can't lock out, sometimes it's just because we're starting to push into the thighs instead of finding a position that's under us that lets us fully straighten out the arm. Sometimes being too upright is an issue. So if we're too upright, then we start to like lose balance here at the top. So we'll end up bending the elbow, or we're starting to get a lot of movement up through the shoulder. So the important thing in terms of the setup is to actually like get over the bar. So that's the other thing that I see go wrong, is that we start in a position that isn't over the bar. So make sure that you bend at the waist and you're pushing this bar down underneath you. So it's essentially going to start under the armpit. So if I can do that, then I have good leverage on the bar. And if we're too far away, that won't happen. So we actually have to get a little bit closer to the cable station. You don't need to smack yourself with the cable. So there's a spot in here that should be fairly comfortable, and you should have good leverage, and you feel like you have control here. And then from there, we can start bending the elbow. There's also a spot in here where you're going to feel the most involvement of the triceps through the whole movement. So if you end up coming up to the top and losing the emphasis on the tricep, that means you need to stop a little sooner. So we might end up stopping essentially hands almost level with the ground and then pushing out from there. And so if we do those things, this will actually naturally control how much weight we can use with this. So like most things, as we start to get more focus on the area that we're working, we might end up having to go more conservative in terms of loading. Because the thing that I see oftentimes is like, everybody wants to load the whole stack on here or get pretty damn close. But the reality is the position is off, so we start to get a lot of body movement. So the more you can isolate the movement to just movement at the elbow, then the better or the more development you'll get out of this and more transfer to other things that you want to do. All right? Hope that helps. Good luck. Bring it.